Thanks, Elena. Yeah, so my name is Preston Burns. I'm here today with Nathan Kosiba. We're here to talk about the ctpatprofile package for developing patient profiles from EDC data. So before we jump into the material, this was a big cross-functional effort between people at Sarepta and at Taurus, and a couple of people I want to call it real quick individually. Zhao Ni has been our fearless leader. His vision and initiative is the reason this got started. Maya Gans, who's one of our co-authors on this paper, I guess it's not a paper, but is one of our co-authors. She's fantastic. Anyone who's worked with her knows that. Her and the whole Taurus team have been great. This wouldn't have happened without them. And then, of course, Nathan, who's with me today, who's been here since the beginning and has been foundational to everything. So I'm going to start by talking about why we made the ctpatprofile package, talk about some of our design principles, and then walk through some of the technical challenges that we worked through and technical decisions we had to make, and then finish with where we're headed. So Sarepta is a rare disease biotech. We have an aggressive disease, and it ends up with a lot of studies that have complex safety rules. So temporary drug suspensions, nephrologist consults get triggered on all sorts of different labs and biomarkers, and it makes patient profiles really important. And traditionally, there's been two main ways that happens. So the one on the bottom right is the more popular option, which is data managers get the EDC data downloaded in Excel, and then they filter each of the domains one by one to the patient, and then they stack them manually in Excel, which, as you can imagine, is time-consuming and error-prone, and they got to do that every single time they have a new request. So that's the first option. And the second option is, there's some situations where external vendor can do it, but a lot of times they require CDISC, which maybe we have like once a month, so it's not super on demand. It can be expensive. It's static. If we need to make changes and so on, there's communication and feedback loops. And so the idea here was to leverage our Chinese web technology and a raw data pipeline in ctpatprofile to create an end-to-end self-service experience. So data managers refresh the data themselves. They go into the application. They find the patient they want. They download their patient profile. If they want to change what domains are in there, if they want to change what variables are in there, they can do all of it themselves. They can do it all on demand. And so it removes sort of the manual repetitive work that we're talking about with Excel and makes it where they can kind of do the whole process themselves and we don't have to do any sort of communication loops. As we were building it, one thing we didn't really want to happen was it to work on one study. So we had a number of design principles we followed, and we wanted to build it as an application framework. So, and it would have an extensible feature list. So, if you get a study and it's a little different, it needs a specific chart, it's easy to add. Everything's designed in modules, right? So plug and play. If a certain program doesn't need one of our features, it's easy to pull it out. And through all of this, making sure we can deploy this for multiple studies, multiple programs. The first step towards achieving this goal of following the design principles and kind of having this self-service experience was an intuitive and friendly user interface. So if you look here, this is the variable selection tab. So this is where a data manager would go to choose what variables they want to include in their patient profile. So they can indirectly switch between variable names and the SAS labels here. They give you tooltips for things that are getting cut off. They can click and drag to reorder how their columns appear in their tables. On the right is an interactive listing. So every change they make, they see real time. And then all of the design is sort of minimalist. So like if you look at circle 5, you can see those little arrows are the select, deselect, and select all arrows. And so it's all sort of minimal ink, easy to use, and kind of an enjoyable experience for users.
All right, so beyond that, UI stuff is always going to be good, but you're going to have to configure this on the back end somehow because you're looking at a bunch of domains, a bunch of variables. You don't want to have to, have users redo everything every single time they load into the app. So we did a bunch of back end stuff, which really just works through an API on a bunch of, unique IDs. And in here we can set up a whole different things from like your application's going to have a scoped configuration to study to domain and variables. And this is all done in machine readable files so that we can easily ingest on our, application side and set everything up from there. And then, in the study config, variable config. So your domain and variable, of course, is going to configure any listings. You have, drag and drop Preston's talking about. You have ordering, you have selection, you have everything you kind of need. And then we can also configure charts. So, any sort of visualizations we're making, we're trying to be able to, configure in the back end so that you can set things up so that when they launch the app, it's pretty much ready for them. They can go do their exploring, change a few things around if they need something, but a lot of it is going to be set up when they load into the application so that they can spend their time exploring the data and not setting up the same things over and over. And then, of course, we talked about this in GC last one, exporting things. So you have to export it to a flat file. These Shiny apps are great for sticking, messing around with data and trying to figure things out. But at some point, you're going to have to export it to either send to, someone else, or someone might not have access to the app. You could need it for a meeting and you want to have it in a flat format so it's right there. So we can export a couple different types of files. We have XLSX SDTM built in for different things. Of course, the patient profiles are just going to run off in PDF, so you can have those, wherever you need. And then XLSX, we have some more rich data in there, such as like labs that you want to flip to a wide format so that the data is a little bit more readable and ingestible. We try to maintain as many features as we can on the outputs, as I said, ordering before, but also, for the wide format, we have some metadata in there, range, lower than low range, higher than high range. We try to put some pieces in there that make the data a little bit better so that it can go on to, meetings or even into downstream systems if you need them. And then one of the big things we ran into was these large patient profiles are going to take a long time to create if you're just running them off the normal way. If you kind of throw them into an R Markdown and you just kind of loop it, it's going to take a while. And also rendering large PDFs we found was a very, very taxing process. So what we looked at was parallelized processing. And one of the big things there is you can just kind of take each domain, chunk it out, and render smaller pieces. And then at the end, just stack it all into one big PDF. You can maintain bookmarks and everything, and it goes so much faster. And of course, you can leverage the parallel processing. If you have a multi-processing system that you can use that on, it's going to be super useful. There's a lot of things to go with this. They're well documented on Stack Overflow and other places on the internet. But parallelized knitting is a adventure in itself. You're going to have to try to figure out how to make things, work. And one of the big things that we learned from it was isolating as many processes as you can into small places. So if you're knitting a document, you probably want to try to knit in its own folder using some of the options there. And then you want to try to get as many things in small environments as possible so that they don't interfere with each other. Knitter uses just random OIDs for a lot of their file names, and you can get the same OID, as we found out. And then also in parallel processing, sometimes things will fail the first time. So we used the per insistently function, which basically just retries it a couple times. We've never had it that fail, thankfully, but yeah, when we were doing it once, it would really just like fail sometimes. You were like, oh, well, that's not good. But yeah, and with parallel, we got it from 15 minutes down to a minute, 1 to 2 minutes for pretty big PDFs.
Yeah, so this is sort of where we've gotten so far with ctpatprofile. We've deployed this on a number of studies. One of them was really important recently. I mean, it's been for data quality review. I mean, the data managers have loved it. But our vision is to provide a one-stop shop for PV scientists, for our medical monitors, for our data managers who all need these patient listings and love them. But we want to expand so that we can bring in, visualizations that allow them to do the rest of their job. So for example, at the top, we've got a chart from Safety Graphics for those who are familiar with the ISG's work. I believe Spencer has an on-demand talk tomorrow, so make sure to catch that. But a user could come in, they find a patient who's weird, they look at their visual patient profile, and then they export their listing, which is sort of their normal method of communication and archiving and all of that deal. So ultimate idea is have this one place they can do everything. We do plan to open source this once it's more mature. And with that, I just want to thank everyone for your time. If you have any questions, you can email me at prburns@sarepta.com.